Joe DiMatteo Jr., Pharmacist, Certified Clinical Nutritionist. Thank you for joining me today. Today I would like to answer an email from a listener. It is a question that we get very often as it deals with antibiotics and probiotics. Okay, so the question is this. My doctor has me on an antibiotic and suggested that I eat yogurt to help my gut and assumedly counteract some of the downside of the antibiotic. Is that a good idea, or is there a probiotic that you would suggest? So, first and foremost, yogurt does contain probiotics. Definitely involved in their production, that's a fact. On the shelf, it's a little more controversial, but a good quality yogurt will typically leave you with probiotics in the final product. So there are limitations to both the probiotics that are there, as well as, some downsides of using that product therapeutically. Again, I'm not saying yogurt is bad or any of the other fermented foods. I'm not saying that they're bad or not to eat them. I'm saying when you're trying to get a therapeutic effect, the standard raises in terms of, what to expect from it and what other options you may have. So part of the problem, whether it's yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha, they can be pasteurized. For example, sauerkraut can be used in this way if it's fresh, but if it's canned, it's pasteurized. A lot of lower-end yogurts all undergo pasteurization. There's one thing to be done on the milk prior, but even some of their final products can be pasteurized. That's going to kill the bacteria. That's the job of pasteurization, just like the job of an antibiotic is to kill the bacteria present. So that's what it would do to the good as well. So the other problem that you could have when, again, trying to use yogurt or another fermented food therapeutically, lower amount of active probiotics, whether for that reason or just naturally. For example, ours are 12, 100, and 225 billion units. Regardless, you're very unlikely to get those kind of values even from the 12 billion one that we have by eating a natural food. Again, if it's something you're eating every day and you're not trying to use it therapeutically, that is fine. But we're talking about, counteracting the effects of an antibiotic. The other thing is it has a very low number of strains. Different strains do different things in the body. The probiotic is a wide term that describes a wide class of specific strains. For example, some are involved in boosting the immune system. Others protect the gut wall and the gut barrier. Others are involved in neutralizing toxins in the body, pH levels in the colon. Some are involved affecting that and taking care of that. Bile acid salts, enzyme activity. I think you get the picture. There's a lot that probiotics do. And if the yogurt was made with 2 of those strains, you're going to lose the benefit thereof. And if the antibiotic is killing those other strains, you're really not going to get much benefit just from doing the yogurt. Again, it's the breadth of the strains and the breadth of this issue if you're trying to get therapeutic effect from it. So overall, yogurt, kombucha, sauerkraut, etc., they're okay to use. It's better than doing nothing, particularly, again, if you avoid the pasteurization. You avoid ones with high sugar. That's just going to feed whatever it is you have, going on while you're taking the antibiotic in the first place. So with some effort, you can maximize the effect that you get from food, and it's certainly better than doing nothing. But, there are other options you can do. So a question that's commonly a follow-up to that is, well, whether it's food or supplements, no matter what I do, isn't the antibiotic just going to kill it? That's true to an extent, and we'll get to maybe something you can do to mitigate that. That is largely true. That's what antibiotics do. The nuance to that is that antibiotics, both when killing bad bacteria and good bacteria, the reason why there's so many, it's not strong and weak. That's not how they work. We get that question asked all the time. Is that a strong antibiotic? Well, that's not what it's about. It's about what strains does it hit? What strain does it hit? How wide of a breadth of strains does it hit? Does it only kill 1 or 2 strains? Does it kill 5 strains? So that will affect this very much as well. So yes, a lot of it may be killed, but you still, by putting more in, you may be mitigating a lot of that by at least boosting the other ones there, or by at least, increasing the volume to the extent that the antibiotic isn't able to kill all of it. So just because it will kill, whether from food or supplement, a lot of the good bacteria, the strains aspect makes it more complicated. And then from there, I think to assume it's going to kill all of it, especially if you keep replenishing it, twice a day, I think that's where, while there's truth in there, it begins to break down a little bit. So what is most likely to occur? There are certainly long-term side effects of repeated exposure. That's for another video. But in terms of the most common short-term side effect, I'm on an antibiotic. They don't do this to me. I don't take them all the time. Why? What would my concern be? It's antibiotic-associated diarrhea. It's very common. Some people know it's common. They take an antibiotic every couple years. They know when they start it's going to happen. It's going to continue for varying lengths of time, even after it's over. A lot of times what you see is, especially in people with poor diets or other conditions or other gut issues, that maybe when they take it 1 year, it's not that bad. And then they take an antibiotic in a year and a half or in 2 or 3 years after that, and it's a little worse. And then it's kind of something that builds because their gut microbiome is continually kind of being eroded by these exposures and not being properly replenished by the diet that they eat or lack of supplementation or lack of eating fermented foods, etc. So in terms of that common short-term side effect that we mentioned here, the diarrhea that can be quite severe and again extend, Saccharomyces boulardii. It's a very specific strain. It is a non-pathogenic yeast. So probiotics are non-pathogenic bacteria. This is a non-pathogenic yeast. It has a different cell wall than a bacteria. It will not be killed at all by antibiotics. But it also has a lot of the properties and has been shown over time to have a lot of positive effect in particularly the colon. So it's not a catch-all. It's not something we recommend for people to take ongoing. But for this case, because it congregates in the colon, it is the primary probiotic, technically, even though that's not what it is because it's a yeast, that we recommend. It's the primary thing that we recommend when somebody asks us, I'm on an antibiotic, what can I do? If the concern is mainly to mitigate that diarrhea, that is the number one thing. Again, that's going to help protect the colon for that period of time where no matter what you're doing, probiotic-wise, you're going to have some disruption of the gut microbiome. So again, not a cure-all. It's not going to work on every single person, but it has been documented over many studies to show great effectiveness. Again, that's Saccharomyces boulardii. In our line, we kind of give it a name. It's just called Flora. All right. So in terms of some recommendations of what to do, back to the original question, what would our recommendations be besides or outside of doing the yogurt or fermented foods? Everybody's case is going to be different. Do you have a history of this? Do you have other gut issues? Do you have a very poor diet? How bad has your diarrhea been, etc.? So there's going to be some variation. But if you're just looking for a basic recommendation you can apply, it would be the Flora or Saccharomyces boulardii strain, 1 twice a day. If you're maybe more on the likely side to have issues, I would start at 2 twice a day, or if after a day or two you find it's not helping at that 1 twice a day level, I would go to 2 capsules twice a day. You don't have to take it directly with the antibiotic. Again, this is a yeast. It's not affected by it at all. You can take it together. You just don't feel like you have to. All right. And then you say, well, what about the other strains? So maybe you're helping the diarrhea, but what about the other things that can be going on in my body? So that's where I still think if you have a history of antibiotic use or you're very concerned, then you can add in a probiotic, even just our basic one twice a day while you're on it. The more critical part is going to be what you do after you get off of it, which, again, I would stick with that 1 twice a day for the average person. There's going to be people that need major gut resets, etc. This is not a catch-all, but just a basic email and a basic recommendation. Assuming no severe issues, 1 twice a day along with the Flora while you're on it if you want to be a little more protective. But afterwards, whether you just go the Flora route or you do add in the probiotics, 1 twice a day on the probiotic essentials. That'll give you 12 billion units twice a day for at least a week after the antibiotic use is over, after the course is over. That will help to reset. And then after that, you can stick with 1 twice a day. That would be just fine. So again, you're looking at short-term side effects. Saccharomyces boulardii is the ticket there. You've got maybe a higher level of concern or maybe some other gut issues, maybe history of antibiotic use. That's where you want to add in the probiotics. And again, there's going to be people who need a higher level. That's why we carry 100 and 225 billion units, but I'm not going to recommend that in a basic case. So that's our primary recommendation for short-term antibiotic use for the average person. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Joe DiMatteo Jr. If you liked this video and liked what you heard, go to our YouTube page, hit subscribe, and make sure you ring the bell to make sure you're notified of all our new videos and content.